Wait, what did you come here to plug?
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say that I wouldn't be with you here today if I didn't have something to plug. Have you heard of the Affordable Care Act?
Oh yeah, I heard about that. That's the thing that doesn't work. Why would you get the guy that created the Zune to make your website?
Healthcare.gov works great now. And millions of Americans have already gotten health insurance plans. And what we want is for people to know that you can get affordable health care.
President Obama taking his health care pitch to the Two Ferns Lions Den of Zach Galifianakis created all kinds of buzz, both good and bad for the White House. And the Roundtable's here to weigh in on that and the biggest political news of the week, a GOP win in a key special election in Florida. Let's get the backstory first from ABC's Jeff Zeleny.
Congratulations.
That sound is the sound of Republicans winning.
Thank you very much.
Congressman David Jolly handing Democrats their first loss of the season. In a Florida district, President Obama narrowly won. Talk of Obamacare.
Obamacare
dominated the race.
How big of a political weight is the health care law on Democrats?
I think that the Republicans are wasting their time using that as their electoral issue, and they will find that out.
So Democrats shouldn't shy away from it?
No. Absolutely not.
But privately, several Democrats tell ABC News they're increasingly worried the health care law is political poison. Their worries may be well-founded, with polls showing the president and his top achievement are still highly unpopular.
Thank you very much.
Republicans smell a wave.
Is there any chance the Republicans could overplay their hand on health care?
Don't underestimate the amount of impact that Obamacare is having on the job market.
The new congressman calls his victory an early sign of GOP strength.
Your win is good news for your party.
I think it spells good things, not just for holding the House for Republicans in November, but actually taking the Senate.
And now, Republicans even more optimistic.
We're going to make 2014 a great Republican year.
With former Senator Scott Brown jumping into the Senate race in New Hampshire, Democrats are defending one more seat in hopes of protecting their ever-fragile Senate majority. For this week, Jeff Zeleny, ABC News, the Capitol.
Let's get to the roundtable now. I'm here with ABC's Matthew Dowd, Greta Van Susteren from Fox News, Georgetown University professor Michael Eric Dyson, Bill Kristol, editor of the Weekly Standard, and Katrina vanden Heuvel, editor and publisher of The Nation. Welcome to you all, Matthew. Let's begin with the special election. Sometimes these special elections are a real sign of things to come. Sometimes they aren't. This time?
I think this is a big sign of what's going to happen in November election. I think when you had this, everything was lined up actually in this district for the Democrats to pull out this victory. They had the better candidate, better name idea. They actually had more money in this. And the Republican candidate actually was very flawed, a former lobbyist in all of this. And Democrats tried to use the playbook that they used in 2012, which was big data, all of the logistics. But what happens in these races is big wave always beats big data. And this wasn't about some big pro-Republican candidate. It is that the president's job approval, where the people see the country in this, sets it up very badly for November.
And Katrina, this was a district that President Obama won, and his former campaign manager, David Plouffe, called it a screaming siren for Democrats, this loss.
I think it's a wake-up call, not for the reasons Matthew mentioned. I mean, this has been a Republican district since 1983. Listen, I think any party needs to turn out its core voters. And I think the Democrats need to think very hard, and they are thinking hard about how you go on the offense around not only Obamacare, but an economic agenda. Repeal is not a policy. Repeal provides no economic security for anyone. So I think the Democrats need to go on the offense, explain how the Republican Party wants to repeal health care, which is a right, wants to take back those policies that would prevent discrimination against women, against people who have pre-existing conditions, and then lay out a robust economic agenda, minimum wage, better jobs, which are being obstructed by Republicans in Congress, pre-K, all kinds of things that will turn out core voters.
Bill Kristol, meantime, that is what the Democratic candidate tried to do in this race, Alex Singh. She said the issue with health care, don't repeal, mend it, don't end it.
Right, and Jolly, the Republican candidate, his key ad at the end went as follows. It's very short. She supports Obamacare. I don't. I'm David Jolly, and I approve this message because we need someone to look out for our interests, not President Obama's. Pretty simple message, pretty strong message. She was a respectable candidate. She wasn't a member of Congress, so she never voted for Obamacare. So if this ad was potent in Florida 13, how does this ad read if you can't just say she supports Obamacare, but she voted for Obamacare repeatedly, which is what they can say about Democratic House candidates and Democratic senators. I think Obamacare, you know, you can talk about different agendas. I agree Republicans need a more energetic economic agenda. Republicans need to be for replace as well as repeal. I think that's very important in health care. But at the end of the day, the Obamacare vote is a huge thing.
I always think, look, this is just going to scare the loser. It's a special election, only 2 names on the ballot, only 1 race. There's a long time between now and November. So this was a Bill Young Republican district for a long time. And while, of course, the Republicans are going to use this against the Democrats are going to be scared because they lost. This is just a special election. November's a long way off. Lots can happen. And this was a Republican seat for 22 years.
But picking up on what Katrina said, Michael, Eric Dyson, it does seem like the big problem for the Democrats here, not just having to defend Obamacare, but the fact that the voters that came out for President Obama in 2008 and 2012, particularly young voters, do not seem motivated this time around. It's hard to get them out in midterm elections.
Well, there is a charisma gap, so you have to acknowledge that. Obama, for all of the faults that people have assigned to him, certainly could galvanize the base. And I think Katrina's right. The Democrats have to figure out a way to galvanize their base, but let's not overplay it. If we can paraphrase Shakespeare, it's much ado about something. The something is not necessarily the fact that the Democrats are just losing. It is, as you just indicated, you know, these special elections are special. That means that they're district laden. That means that, look, in 2009 and 10, the Democrats had 3 special elections that they won. But they got beat badly in the 2010 midterm election. So it doesn't necessarily augur well or ill for respective candidates, depending upon these special elections. I think we have to.
Jolly also ran as a kind of false populist. Well, but it's interesting.
This really wasn't about Jolly. In my view, this really wasn't about Jolly, and this really wasn't fundamentally about Obamacare. What this is about is the mood of the country. And I think Democrats, at their peril, ignore the mood of the country out there. And as the mood changes, and it's changed this year, the president has a job approval rating in the low 40s, and when a president has a job approval rating in the low 40s, the incumbent loses seats.
One person who seems to agree with that is Scott Brown. 2 days after the election, 3 days after the election, decides to set up his exploratory committee in New Hampshire. Here's what he said.
It wasn't so long ago, I remember it like you do, that the Democratic establishment in Washington was feeling very, very comfortable. A big political wave is about to break in America. And the Obamacare Democrats are on the wrong side of that wave.
Feels confident enough, Greta Van Susteren, to move to another state to try to become a senator right there. And this really opens up the map for Republicans. It gives them many more routes to a Senate majority.
And he's going to have a lot of support from Republicans nationwide. I don't know how much support he's going to get from voters in New Hampshire. I don't know if they'll see him as a carpetbagger, but he's going to get a lot of support nationwide because the Republicans really want and need that seat.
But, you know, there is a disconnect in this country. Right. There is a disconnect between the Beltway and the people. It is a populist moment. If you look at the polls, majorities support minimum wage, more fairness, taking on a rigged system that's working against working people. The Democrats and the progressive, the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party is ascendant, and it needs to speak more forcefully. The special election didn't have that. She may have been a good candidate, but she was also a former corporate lobbyist. And Jolly used false populism against her. He kept talking about this falsehood that Obamacare is going to cut Medicare. The Republican candidate was, we need more Medicare, we need more Medicare. I like that. We need Medicare for all down the road. But I'm just saying it's a populist moment. Let's not forget it, and let's not buy these polls out of Washington.
I agree with Katrina. The Republicans need to run as populists. I think they're intelligent enough to do so, and I think it's true populism. Obamacare cuts Medicare Advantage. That's a fact.
That is an insurance.
That is
a policy for insurance companies.
30% of seniors have chosen, in this free country of ours, 30% of seniors have chosen to buy Medicare Advantage. Obamacare takes money from Medicare Advantage.
Medicare Advantage is favoring the insurance companies.
And that's a big issue in Florida with the demographics.
But victory is the lens through which people perceive positives, and defeat is the negative lens. Look, the reality is Walden, who was in charge of 2004 campaigns in the Congress, said, a Republican, look, before the special election, it's not going to matter either way. People have to galvanize their bases. They have to go forward. This is not a referendum on Obamacare so much as it is dictated by the districts. Now, after he wins, of course, it's a referendum. I think we can't overplay what's going on here, but the populism that Katrina responds to and is talking about, the tea leaves, if we read the Tea Party leaves, they have commandeered populism in a far more effective way than have Democrats. And I think what we've got to figure out is what goes on in terms of galvanizing that base.
You can't underestimate, though, the importance of Medicare in the state of Florida and winning the state of Florida.
But Medicaid, you can't underestimate. Bobby Jindal, Medicaid in Louisiana right now. Bobby Jindal is suing Move On for putting up billboards saying Bobby Jindal is going to take away your Medicaid. If the Democrats could expose how Florida's governor and other governors are taking away Medicaid, you get a lot of low-income voting.
This is not. I watched in 2012. I've seen us. Been involved in a series of elections, and to 2012, that the main criticism from the conservative wing of the party was Mitt Romney wasn't conservative enough. If he had been more conservative and had more points in this, I agree, the country's a populist country. But when you have a D on your back in a bad year, it doesn't matter what you say, you're probably going to lose. And when you have an R on your back in a bad year like 2012 and 2006, you're going to lose. That's why Scott Brown is fine evidence. I don't know if he's going to win or lose. He's a flawed candidate, but he's got an R on his back, and he's cresting in a wave of this year when people are frustrated with the president.
That doesn't take into account unpredictable forces and crises that might emerge. Yeah, exactly. Look, it's like in football. They say that's why you play the game. You can stack up the stats before games.
I agree. We shouldn't call the election.
But a C on your back is a bad thing, too, as my friend, longtime Texas populist Jim Hightower likes to say. The only thing in the middle of the road, dead armadillos and yellow stripes. So I think it's better to pump up and move forward and turn out the base.
That's true, but unless, as Matthew pointed out, unless President Obama can get his approval ratings up back into the mid to high 40s, very little chance for Democrats to hold on to the Senate, I think, this year. I do want to turn on to something else happening in the Senate this year. It was kind of a remarkable moment. We had Senator Intelligence Committee Chair Dianne Feinstein go to the Senate floor in what turned out to be a rage this week, doing a broadside against the CIA, suggesting that the CIA had inappropriately monitored the computers of Senate staffers, taken documents from Senate staffers. She had said she had grave concerns about that. Take a look.
The CIA's search may well have violated the separation of powers principles. I have asked for an apology and a recognition that this CIA search of computers used by its oversight committee was inappropriate. I have received neither.
Now, this is all about the Senate investigation into the CIA interrogation practices back in the first decade of this century. Now, you've got a remarkable situation right now, Greta Van Susteren, where the Senate is suggesting that the CIA broke the law by looking at their computers. The CIA is suggesting that the Senate broke the law, Senate staffers broke the law by taking away documents, and you've got a major confrontation, real war.
I know, everyone thinks that Senator Dianne Feinstein did this incredible assault. You know, what she's asking for, she's asking like inappropriate monitoring. It's called breaking the law, is about bad manners, and she wants an apology. She should demand an investigation.
She has asked for an investigation.
Well, the CIA needs to be investigated, and a criminal investigation. I see Bill shaking his head, but you know, we let the intelligence community get away with murder. Yeah. You've got the DNI committing perjury, lying before the Senate, and it just goes away. You know what happens if you steal a ham from the grocery store? You get prosecuted. You know what happens if the CIA does domestic spying on the Senate? Senator Feinstein wants an apology, so it's bad manners.
I mean, part of me thinks, you know what, if Senator Feinstein wants to attack Leon Panetta and the Obama administration's conduct of the CIA, go right ahead.
She wants the Panetta documents released.
Yeah, understand, this is an administration launched after President Obama takes office, totally controlled by a Democratic-appointed CIA director, and the staff, the Senate staffers, are all Democrats who are writing this one-sided report. I will defend the intelligence community against a bunch of senators and their staff, though. I will defend the interrogation program that was.
First of all, Bill, it's not an interrogation program; it's torture. Second of all, Senator Feinstein has been a great defender of the intelligence community. She is now saying, without effective oversight, secret government is not justified in a democracy. There should have been prosecutions. There should have been accountability.
To oversee the CIA?
We now have 2 administrations or more implicated in this. President Obama should have prosecuted, held accountable. What we now need, and we write about it in The Nation this week, is a new church committee. The committee that in the 70s exposed abuses of the NSA, CIA, FBI, and try to reorient our intelligence community to be
what about Eric Holder's citizens. What about Eric Holder? Eric Holder, President Obama's Attorney General, did a criminal investigation, in my view, a disgraceful investigation, looking backwards at CIA officials who were doing their job. He found nothing illegal. Nothing illegal.
Michael, why is there 6,000 pages of this report which should be disclosed?
Either we're going to be transparent or not. Now, here's newsflash. Spy. Oh, my God. But they also lie.
This is domestic spying, too. Don't forget that.
But so the reality is yes, it is a pitched battle between Feinstein and the CIA director, but it's also about the degree to which the legislative branch shall exercise oversight over an executive branch appointee in terms of the CIA. So secondly, though, when we talk about the CIA, regardless of who's in the office there, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, the fact is they will remain there after the president is gone. And you have to deal with the persistence of a shadow government established by a spy agency.
You get the last word here. I do think the CIA is going to be trying to mend fences.
Well, I think there's 3 points here. First, this feels like a Walter Cronkite moment. When you lose Walter Cronkite in the Vietnam War, you know you're on a bad side. When you lose Dianne Feinstein in this fight, you know you're on the wrong side of this. The second thing, it seems very hypocritical in all of this. The members of Congress and the members of the Senate defend all these programs when they're spying on average Americans, but as soon as it comes on them, they start saying, oh my gosh, this is an awful program. Three is this is what happens when we have a culture where we argue that the ends justify the means. When we have this whole culture that basically says we can do whatever it takes so that we don't have terrorism to preserve security, these kind of things happen when you have a culture where the ends justify the means.
It's coercion and intimidation, and it has to be dealt with.